Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast. My name is Melissa, and this is Sammy. We are diving deep into conversations that connect and inspire. Stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation. Stories that take us to the heart of human connection. Please note that opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast. Please listen with your kindness and an open mind. Each story shared is authentic and vulnerable. Let's embrace our differences with empathy, knowing every voice enriches us. Together, let's cultivate a community of respect and curiosity. Thank you for listening. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired. I want to say I'm really grateful for you sharing this with us and sharing your story with us. And also, I'm just immensely sorry that this is your story. I wish that we are meeting you under completely different circumstances. And I'm just really, I'm grateful for you sharing, and I'm just really sorry. I just was like holding my breath through your story. Just like,
Yeah. If we were in person, I'd be getting out of my chair and interrupting us to come and give you the longest hug. Like the longest hug if we were in person right now.
I want to ask, and I feel like this is maybe an appropriate time to ask this question, hopefully. Is there support for the mental health side of this for you, for your husband, for your daughter, Harper? Is there support in, like you mentioned anxiety, you mentioned some of the mental health stuff. Is there support for that?
There is in some capacities, and then there isn't in others. And so we at the Alberta Children's Hospital in oncology, you're assigned a social worker like right away, and they're masters of social work, so they're clinical social workers, so they can provide like counseling and stuff. We had a social worker that we felt very well connected to, very comfortable with, and she felt very safe to me. So I was very comfortable to go to her, like knock on her door and sit and just be like, verbal diarrhea. This is what I'm trying to deal with. This is what I'm trying to process. This is where we need help. This is where, so like we need some extra support and stuff. And she was amazing. And she is a huge part of why I chose to go into social work, because every time I was with her, I remember leaving the room thinking, like, I want to be that to somebody one day. I want to be that person one day. She was very profound to our journey in oncology. And so, yes, there was support in that way. For Harper, there wasn't really anything. It wasn't until Evelyn was palliative that then we had access to mental health supports for Harper through the Rotary Flames House. That to me is awful. And it's something that we're still looking at how we can fix and how we can do better for people. Because, I mean, if we're being honest, Harper needed counseling and support 18 months earlier, right? Like she was going through a lot as well. It's very hard to be the sibling. Like I would say, like, to your listeners, if you know somebody who's going through a medical crisis, like not just oncology, but any sort of medical crisis, and they have a child, in crisis and they're trying to support them, don't forget the siblings. Please don't forget the siblings. The siblings are so often forgotten. People are really good at remembering mom and taking care of mom. They're mostly good at remembering dad. They're not so great at remembering the siblings. So if you are making like a care package, make one for the sibling as well. If you are giving the patient a gift card, also give one to the sibling, because those siblings, their entire life is different. That first year Evelyn was in treatment, we spent 200 nights in the hospital. I slept under the hospital roof more than I slept under my own. And Harper was home with Mike and trying to go to school and trying to be like a regular grade 1 kid. And her mom and her sister were at the hospital. And then Mike and I would trade off. But Harper still, like, in all of that time at 6 years old, her family of 4 was very rarely all in one place at one time. And that is so hard. And then she sees her sister throwing up running fevers and in pain and going through all of these things that, treatment puts you through. And she carries a burden of that as well. And I think like both of my girls are amazing people. Like neither of them complained. They just like came together, they rallied, they loved each other. Harper used to like wear costumes to the hospital and like walk up and down the hallways entertaining kids through the doorway in their rooms. Like she just did everything she could to make people happy during that time. Evelyn was the same. Like she had so many little oncology friends that she like loved and took care of and like just did lovely things for. And because they really, all of these people become family to you. And like Harper really held all of that with grace as much as Evelyn held all of it with grace. But I think a lot of people think, well, Harper's not getting chemo, so she's okay. But there is a whole other set of things that are happening for her in that time. And she also needs to feel seen and loved and supported. And so, like, I'm very grateful to the people who ensured that Harper felt loved in that time and continue to ensure that Harper feels loved and seen. I will be forever indebted to people who make sure my kid is seen inside of all of this. People like there was, people that did really lovely things for Harper and all of that and continue to do really wonderful things for her. But there was a lot of times where somebody would be like, oh, would Evelyn like to, go to the Flames game or something? And I would reply back and like, Evelyn and Harper would love to go. And like, there's a lot of times where I had to, and what was funny is that as soon as I said it, people were like, oh yeah, of course, Harper too. Like nobody had a problem with it. I think they just didn't realize that she also needed it. Right. And so like, there's an advocacy piece, I guess, is just recognizing that these siblings, they really take on a lot in that time, and they carry a lot of the worry and the burden as well. Harper and Evelyn, like Harper and Evelyn were 3.5 years apart in age. Harper adored Evelyn. They were very close. I mean, they had sibling annoyances and stuff, but they had a very beautiful relationship. I mean, the number of pictures I have of them like sleeping together at night, crawling into each other's beds, like, and this was even before Ev was in treatment. Like this was just who they were. Like they just loved each other so, so deeply. And, I just think like these siblings, they are watching their best favorite person go through the thick of it, and they need to be loved and supported too.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%. My gosh.
I think probably it's the person is like, oh, Evelyn could probably use something to take her mind off of everything that's going on, but it's like, yeah, Harper could too, and it's well-meaning. It's just I've for sure done something similar like that. I'm not faulting anybody. It's just you forget, right, that the other kid has hard things too. It's just not the same hard things, but they're intertwined together. Sure.
And that's why it's like a thing to talk about, right? Because I don't think anybody has a problem supporting the sibling. They just don't think that this, like, it's just not this forefront thing. Just like people are much better at remembering mom than they are dad, I think, because people just think like mothers are the caregivers. And I mean, I guess that's true, but the dads are caregivers as well, and like, Mother's Day and stuff, I get, Mike gets one text for every 10 that I get. And I think that's not even just in grief, like that's just in general. People are good at remembering the moms at that kind of stuff and less good at remembering the dads, but like the dads are also watching some of their favorite humans go through some of their worst days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As you had said, I want to use your wording, that you guys had chosen to live big during that time after Evelyn's diagnosis and her cancer treatments. Can I ask what it was that you guys were doing that was your living big after the diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were already a family that like adventured and loved and took on the world. But I think when you're faced with a crisis, especially a crisis that might come with a significant loss, it shifts your perspective and you learn to worry less about other things that maybe would have made you worry, and that leaves more room for joy, right? And so we sat back and we were like, what do we love the most? Well, we love being together. And so we like did as much as we could, as often as we could. You know, like I mentioned, we spent a lot of time in the hospital. So whenever we were home, we really tried to like be the four of us. And, you know, that meant we still went camping. We love camping. So we still went camping, central line and all. We still went to the hot springs, which our doctor did not love. We still, we went to Disney. We went to PEI. The girls were in a wedding. We just thought we're just going to do everything we can possibly fit in every way we can fit it in. And, you know, that meant sometimes in our own home doing things. We did some cool fundraising projects. The Calgary Marathon had a race that Evelyn was like the spokes kid for, and we were there, and Ev was ringing the bell, and I ran it, and we were like a huge part of that event. We went to hockey games and football games and spent time with our favorite people. And we tried to get the girls, Ev especially, to school as often as possible so she could feel normal even just once in a while, because sometimes living big is just doing normal things and being with your friends. And we just, yeah. And I mean, I felt yucky, but she just was home. So her friends would all come here and they'd all curl up in bed with her together and they'd watch movies from bed. And like, I know that doesn't sound big to people who are like maybe skydiving out of airplanes, but I don't think there's anything bigger we can do than like love. And so we just loved people and we let ourselves be loved. And we found a lot of really cool adventure inside of that.
We just loved people and we let ourselves be loved. Oh my goodness, Heather. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Answer of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, 10-year-old, at that age, like your friends are everything.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So having friends over to just hang out with you when you're in bed, like she probably felt so
loved,
warm and fuzzy inside for just having her friends there to hang out with her.
And we watched a lot of movies. At the hospital, at home, we watched movies. There was one time I like snuck. I say that with like quotation marks because you can't like just leave the hospital. I got a pass, but I didn't tell Ev we had a pass, and it was like 10 p.m. and I snuck her out of the hospital to go to the movie theater to catch like a late night movie. Like I don't know, you just find little adventure wherever you can, because you just sometimes need to have a good day.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. No, that's awesome. Good for you guys, Heather.
I wanted to ask one thing, and it might sound like a strange question, but you said when you were saying things need to change, and when you were saying about how when we see happy, perfect little bald children, that doesn't incite the change and that doesn't create the kind of urgency that needs to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
What does need to be shown?
I don't know. I wish I like had this big, wonderful, insightful answer, because I also think sometimes if you show things that are too hard, that people are going to shut it out because they can't bear to look at it. And so I don't know what the balance is, but I feel like we share far too much of, I don't want to say like the good side of cancer, because like it's cancer. But I feel like, I just feel like there's not a true representation out there. And I don't like, because I also don't want people to only think about Evelyn as like this sickly kid, because she wasn't, but I don't know, like I think it's really hard to talk about the hard stuff, and I think it's really hard to hear the hard stuff. And so our default as like humans is to like only show the good bits. And I think social media perpetuates that, right? Like all our perfect little squares on Instagram. And so we don't really see what's happening. And the problem is though, if you're too sad or too, I don't know, if it's too hard, then people aren't going to look at it either. So there, maybe the answer is we have to find a better balance, but I don't know what that balance is. And I don't know if we'll ever know. I think maybe we just have to keep playing with it. And I think like you'll just never make people happy. This is like something I haven't really publicly shared before, but I have a larger Instagram following, as you both know. I mean, people are aware of that. That's not the part I haven't shared, but that's like not a secret. But like there was one time, this was about a year and a half ago, we went on what was like our first vacation, like post Ev passing away, post COVID. We went with our best friends. We chose to go to Disney, which was also the last place we went with Evelyn. So it's like very special to us. Mike and I like are big Disney nerds. Like we honeymooned in Disney. We'd taken the girls on like multiple trips there. Like we just love Disney. And we knew we needed to go back and it just felt right. And so we went. And it like there was certain moments that I knew were going to be really hard. Like there was certain spaces where I just knew there was like really big moments that we had with Ev on that last trip, that like walking back into that space, like I knew certain spaces weren't going to be easy, but I also knew that it was going to just be like so good to be there, because it's, as dorky as this sounds, a little bit like coming home in some way, because it just holds like so much goodness and happiness and like joy for our family. So we went, and I had like shared, you know, as we all do when we go on vacation, you know, in our stories and different moments and whatever. And I did share some of the like harder things. And I had, in the same day, I had a message saying that from someone that they were not following me anymore because I am too happy for someone who is supposed to be grieving. And within a few hours, I got another message from somebody else saying that they were not following me anymore because I was too sad. And so like that, I mean, I'm too happy and I'm too sad. So like, what do you do? Right. And so I don't think there is a magic answer to that question. And I think that story just amplifies that idea that like, it doesn't matter what you do, somebody's going to be unhappy with it. And you're just like, okay, see you later. Like, it's not an airport. You don't need to tell me when you're departing. But also like, it definitely gives you pause. Like in the same day, I'm told I'm too happy and I'm too sad. Like, explain that, please.
Yeah.
So like, peace out and we'll see you later, I guess. Or maybe not.
It's just like wild that people feel the need to tell someone they're unfollowing them. Like just unfollow. It's okay if you don't want to follow me anymore, but like just
go
unfollow
away.
me. Just go.
Yeah,
just go.
I know. And the audacity to be like, you're too sad.
No.
And
yeah, also you're too happy. Like,
or that I'm too happy.
Like,
for someone who's supposed to be grieving.
Oh my gosh.
I did the thing, Sammy. I totally interrupted in that.
It's okay.
What?
I liked every time I hear you said this, and other people have said this, and whenever people speak on like these hard stories are too much for people, like they don't want to hear it, they get uncomfortable and they just turn it off. Like, it makes me furious. And I'm not like, you have to surround yourself with sad stories all the time. You got to have a balance. You got to have positive, and you got to, but if you're just shutting out all the bad, you're ignoring what's out there and what actually needs to change. If all you focus on is the good, you're missing what needs to change. And you're missing your ability to make an impact in someone's life in some way, shape, or form. It's just a very I'm going to say it. Someone's going to get mad at me. I don't care. It is a very selfish place to be, to shut out all the bad. I'm not saying you got to hear all the bad, but to shut it all out and only focus on the good is a very selfish place to be. And
but I think like on the other side of that is, like I said, you know, with Ev, I don't want people to only think of her as like this poor sick kid. So as parents, I think in these situations, we also kind of are only sharing certain sides because we're probably protecting ourselves a little bit too.
They're your memories too.
Totally. I more meant on like a global scale than
No,
like
I know, I know,
Okay.
I know.
I
I know
meant
you meant like on a global scale for sure. I just was like, felt like I had to highlight that other little piece for like people to know, like, this is a problem on like both sides of the fence probably, and that it's really hard to share the hard things, but it's also really hard to absorb the hard things.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know like what the answer is, but like, yeah, it's a hard thing, but I do think like we need people to be talking about it, and we need people to be like, maybe sometimes like extremely transparently honest about some of the pieces of what this is. And I think like I am a person that needs to share in order to heal. Like I find healing in action, so doing things, but that also includes sharing. My husband is much more private. He's a lot quieter. He's not sharing. He's not like, he does not have social media. Like he's not doing those things the way I am. But for me, I find healing inside of that. And so I choose to do these things and participate in these things. And the thing for me is that like, because I find it healing, I find it easier to share, including like the hard pieces. But I do see like, the algorithm doesn't like that, right? Like for a long time, for about the first 3 years of Ev passing away, I shared something every Wednesday about her and about my grief, because she passed away on a Wednesday. So it felt like Wednesday was kind of like this day, and it slowly kind of stopped being like a consistent Wednesday thing, because I think that I didn't need it as much for the healing anymore. But I still always take like a little bit of pause on a Wednesday for Ev. But like every time I would post one of those really hard things on a Wednesday, I would see like a follower count drop. And I think it's because people just can't handle things that are really, really sad. Like they want to see the happy parts. And I think that's, like you said, that's a little bit sad to me, because I think you are missing an opportunity. And like for me, I'm so grateful for the people who shared ahead of me their stories and their heartaches and their, challenging parts of their journeys, because they made it feel safe for me to share. And my hope is always that like, maybe I'm that for somebody else. Like maybe because now I'm sharing, because somebody made it safe for me, maybe now I'm making it safe for someone else. And if sharing those pieces is what's healing for you, then it's the thing you should be doing. For Mike, it's not the thing that's healing for him, so he doesn't do it, and that's also okay. But I think for the people that need to put these things out into these spaces, I think if that's what's healing, they should be doing it, and there should be a sense of safety attached to that for them. And so I think more of us need to feel like we can share, we can put the hard bits out, because it's creating safety inside of our community, not just in childhood cancer, but like I think like medical crisis. I think for grievers, like we've all lost something in our lives at some point in some capacity, and I think there's community inside of that too, and there needs to feel safe for everyone to do what is important for them to do to heal.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And as I'm sitting here listening to you and thinking about your points and thinking of what I said, like, I don't think everyone should be an all-consuming in sad things. I think that, like I said, there has to be a balance. But when people, I've heard this be said to people that just like you heard, like, you're too sad, I can't follow you. You're too happy for someone who's supposed to be grieving. Like, it's still calling out what you're allowed to live. And I've heard, people go to share their story with someone who's asked the question and they're stopped mid-sentence, like, this is too hard, I can't hear it. I'm like, this person lived it, and you can't take the minute to listen to the story. I don't mean you have to listen to everybody's sad story and and everybody's heartbreak and everybody's trauma. I don't think that's overwhelming and would crush you, but to hold space for people when they're in a place where they can share it. I think even if you don't read the sad post, just give it a like and move along.
Yeah. And I think just like, you're right, like holding space for people. And I think that's like, that sort of connection is what makes us human, and it's what makes us special, right? Like the fact that we have the capacity to hold space for people, I think is a really beautiful gift we carry as humans. And I think we should naturally hurt when we see hurting in the world, and we should naturally want to do something about that. And I think, you know, spaces like social media do sometimes make that difficult, because they're happy little squares. But you know, it's like, I don't know, who are we if we can't come alongside another person? I don't want to be the person who can't do that. I don't. And even if it makes me uncomfortable, I still want to sit in space for that person, because somebody sat in space for me. And because how do we live without, like, how do we live without that? I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how we are human without those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go into what we talked about before with, you were talking about all these things that Ev had mentioned when she was in treatment, that she's like, oh, this would make this easier and this would make this better, and how you wanted to do more of the psychosocial side of things and make an impact in that. I don't want to totally assume, but I assume a lot of that has to do with Radflix and helping families and all, and what you have going on in those areas. So can you share with us some of the things that Ev said that she's like, this would be better, and this would be better, and this would be better, and what actions you've taken through different paths to kind of bring some of that alive for people that are currently going through cancer treatments in the pediatric field?
Yeah. So yeah, we really, like I said, you know, I'm not a cancer researcher. Like, I'm not the person who is finding the cure. I want to support the person who's finding the cure. And in the meantime, I also want to do things to make this better. And we already know that treatment is hard and that there's a lot of deficits that come with it. And so if we can do things to protect, you know, our well-being inside of all of that, I feel like that's something really significant I can do, and something I can contribute to that makes the experience better. And of course, like, you know, the hope is always a cure, and that nobody has to go through this. But until that cure is found, and as long as kids have to go through this, I want to know that I'm doing something to make that space safer and happier for them. And so, yeah, we've been involved in a handful of different things. One of the things we do every year on Ev's anniversary is we do a fundraiser that covers the cost of parking. So there's a local charity that we love called Helping Families Handle Cancer, and they were really supportive of our family when Ev was in treatment. So they paid for all of our parking for the whole 18 months. It's $71 a month to park at the hospital, and I'm not there by choice. And it made me so angry that that was a thing that people were paying for. And as we were coming up, so Helping Families paid for all of our parking when Ev was in treatment. They also paid for an after-school care program for Harper, which was such a beautiful gift for her. So what they did by paying for Harper to be at that after-school care program was it enabled Mike to still continue to go to work. So because the bank still wants you to pay your mortgage, even though your kid is in the hospital. And so Mike was still able to go to work, and I was able to be with Ev. So they paid for her childcare, like that 3 months that we were in hospital for Ev's transplants. And so it meant I could be with Ev and not be worrying about how Harper was doing. And it meant Mike could be at work and not be worrying about like how we were going to make ends meet, and also not be worrying about, you know, me and Ev and Harper. We knew Harper was in this like happy place, having fun, being well taken care of. And it was something special for her. So Helping Families Handle Cancer had paid for that. And it was like such a significant gift to our family that well exceeded, you know, financial support, this was also an emotional care piece for our family because it created safety for all of us. So when we were coming up on the first anniversary of Ev's passing, I had just felt like it was just too heavy and too hard. And I was like, I'm not going to plan anything. Like when we had her first birthday without her, we had this huge party, which I'll talk about coming up here because we do still do that party every year. But for the anniversary, it just felt a little different. And we just were like, I don't know if we can do anything. And then this huge bouquet of beautiful flowers arrived at our house, and then another one, and then another one. And like, I love flowers. So fresh flowers, like they make my heart happy. But I looked at them and I said to Mike, I'm like, these are so beautiful and nice, but like, that's 3 months of parking for a family. And I'm like, maybe we need to, and like, we were feeling like we weren't giving people anywhere to channel like their sadness over that day. And that's why things like flowers and stuff were arriving. And I'm like super grateful that people were loving us through that. But at the same time, I was like, we can do something better with this. So I called Carrie, who's like the executive director and founder. She's also a childhood cancer survivor herself. And she started this charity out of her own stories and memories of her mom being like a single parent, trying to take care of her and her brother through her cancer. She's a remarkable human being whom like I adore, and I could do a whole podcast just about all the amazing Carrie things that I could say. But yeah, she started this charity and had been so supportive of our family through it, and of so many other families. And so I reached out to her and was like, hey, like we need to do something with this day. Can we do like a family fundraiser? And could we fundraise? Okay, Carrie, I feel like she should be here because she always remembers this better than me. But I was like, I think I wanted to fundraise for like 50 parking passes or something. And she was like, I think like you have a really big support network and like you should set a goal for like 100. And I was so nervous for that 100. Because I felt like if we didn't meet it, did that mean people didn't like remember or love Ev, right? Like it was a very like challenging thing, but Carrie was, I think, really sure that like 100 would be easy. And I was like, okay, we'll just do it. And so on the anniversary of, and we told people it was coming and like, we're going to do this thing for a couple of days. And then on the anniversary, because we really put this together like last minute because I had not wanted to do anything and then changed my mind, which I'm very good at doing. So we planned this thing over a couple of days and we posted it. And I think in like less than an hour, we had fundraised like 100 passes. Like it was nuts. Carrie and I were texting each other, like, are you looking? Are you watching? Can you see this? Like, it was just craziness. And it just made us so happy. And we were like, well, clearly we need to up the goal. And so we like made an announcement and we were like, we're going to do 150 passes. And then we were going to do 200 passes. Like we fundraised something like $33,000, which covered like a whole year of parking passes for oncology families at the Alberta Children's Hospital. It was nuts. Like it was well beyond my like wildest expectations. And it's Carrie called it honoring Evelyn, and we do honoring Evelyn every year. And we have raised over the 4.5 years that Ev's passed away. So we do this over about a week period of time around like it always covers over February 26th. We've raised over $100,000 in 4 years just in that initiative, which is like, I just think Ev would be so proud of that. Like, I think it would just like, it's so cool to me that we have paid that much in parking for families. So our goal every year is to cover whatever the predicted parking pass budget is going to be at Helping Families Handle Cancer. So they work directly with the social workers at the Alberta Children's Hospital in oncology. So everything out of their program is social worker referred, and they pay, like I mentioned, they paid our parking, they paid childcare costs for Harper, they pay mortgage, rent payments, utilities, medical expenses that aren't covered, by benefits or extended health care. They cover like fuel costs for families, especially families that are traveling to get to and from treatment. Like, I mean, look at how expensive gas is these days. So they get like fuel cards, we cover groceries, taxi chits, because like you can't take an immunocompromised kid on a bus, right? But not everybody drives or has a car. And so they create that safety. Like, it really just blows my mind, all the wonderful and amazing things they fund for families. And like, this is just a small way for us to give back to them, but also to honor. And so it's so aptly named, but it's to honor Evelyn and her legacy of just like caring about people. So that's one of the things we do. And then so when I've had most of our energy and time goes into radiation, childhood radiation happens at an adult hospital. This is across Canada. This isn't unique just to our city. And because so many people are unaware of that, no resources get funneled into those spaces, which just like drives me crazy, because I'm like, these kids go from this like big, beautiful Lego hospital on the hill, right? Their Alberta Children's Hospital, which is so wonderful, down the hill to like the dank old basement of the Tom Baker. And it just feels like such a heavy contrast, and it just creates so much stress and anxiety for these kids. And so when Ev went there for her radiation treatment, the staff was like remarkable, but they had no resources. And we could see like how much they wanted to do and how much they loved the kids. When Ev finished radiation, they gave her a gift that they purchased with their own money. And like, how beautiful is that, right? Like, that's how much they love these kids, but how little resource they have that the staff is buying out of their own pockets these gifts for kids. So Ev one day came home and said, Ev was at the hospital, and she said, she had forgotten Henry. So she has this like panda that's her beloved stuffy that comes everywhere. We used to joke that Henry was radioactive because he literally was like in every scan, every treatment, everything with her. And Henry, she forgot him the one day, and she was like devastated. And radiation is really hard for kids. I mean, for anybody, but especially for kids, because they have to be in that room alone. And it's like this big, intimidating, cold vault, and they have to lay in this huge machine and get this treatment, and nobody can sit there and hold their hand through it. And for a lot of kids, that's their first part of their treatment that like their caregiver isn't sitting there with them for. And so she didn't have Henry, and she was really stressed about how that was going to go. And so I went to the unit clerk, and I was like, I told her we forgot Henry, and I was like, do you have anything? He said, the Children's Hospital, they have like drawers, and they open them up. There's like 400 stuffed animals in them, and like cool things that help the kids out. And they had nothing. She like opened up a drawer, and this like old Christmas ornament like rolled out, and it was like a little stuffed penguin. And she's like, I have this. And I like took it and then ran up to the gift shop to try to find something else, just so Ev had like a comfort item. And Ev said when we left that day, she was like, we should make sure they have toys. And so we do a toy drive every year. And the first toy drive, Ev was still living for us, so she was a part of it. And so we do this toy drive every year in October, and it provides all of the comfort and reward items that they need for their patients for a year at a time. It's like so cool to be able to do that. And it's even more special because Evelyn was a part of the first one. Like, there's really just so much of her heart in it. And then another time we were leaving radiation, and Ev said, I wish there was a Cindy here. It'd be so much easier if I had a Cindy. And Cindy's the child life specialist that works on oncology at the Children's. And we were like, hey, we're going to get a Cindy. And so we advocated for about a year and a half with Alberta Health Services that a child life specialist was necessary for the kids that were in Tom Baker, and that continuity of care was really important. And that if they were having this access at the Children's Hospital, they should also have it when they go to other facilities for necessary treatments. And they finally agreed and that, yes, this is a necessary position. We advocated like with the pediatric radiation oncologist, who is like another personal hero of mine because she's amazing. And so we advocated for this thing with her and it finally got approved. And then they were like, but also you have to like fund the first couple of years of it. So we had to fund because it takes some time to like build in their budgets and things like anyways, we worked really hard and we fundraised. We have $30,000 left to our full commitment, but we're close enough to our commitment that in May, the child life specialist was hired and started. And I am like incredibly proud. So we have to do $250,000 and we've done like over 200 of that. So yeah, so we're like super, super close. And hopefully in September, we'll be able to finish off what's left of that fundraising commitment. But that position is now hired and in place, but we do still have to give them the rest of the money. So don't get too excited yet. And then probably one of the projects that I am like singularly most proud of is called Radflix. And so Radflix is a piece of technology that enables kids to watch movies while they're receiving radiation. Ev would say, if I could just watch a movie, it would be so much easier. And I mean, I mean, if any of you have ever put an iPad or a TV or a Nintendo Switch or something in front of your children and seen how they disappear, or listen to your children talk about a character as if they know that character intimately because they are friends to them. If we could just make it possible for kids to watch movies, now they're not alone in there anymore and they have a positive distraction in place, and it just is huge. And so there's a doctor and a physicist in the States, Doug Holt and Brian Miller, that developed this thing called Radflix. And it's really like a first of its kind. And it's a device that enables kids to watch movies while receiving radiation. And it does not impact, it's what's called like radio transparent, and it doesn't affect the dosimetry. So it doesn't impact the dose of radiation that the patient receives. And nothing really has like existed like this before. In some cases you hear stories of people like hanging an iPad, but that doesn't work when they have to radiate like skull or brain or spine. And most pediatric patients that are receiving radiation is because of brain tumors. So then they can't use the iPad, right? So it's like a thing. So anyways, I've worked with Doug and Brian to kind of like continue bringing this thing to life. Initially it started as like just a way of getting it to Calgary, and then Radflix got brought in by this incredible organization in the US. Like, you want to talk about like taking your pain and using it as rocket fuel. So Morgan Adams Foundation was started by a woman named Joan Slaughter, who and her husband, when they lost their daughter Morgan over 20 years ago to a brain tumor, and they started the Morgan Adams Foundation. And their primary focus is they fund pediatric cancer research. They funnel like a few $1 million a year into pediatric cancer research in the States. And they particularly focus on things like solid mass and brain tumors, which get even less attention than things like liquid tumors. And like, we're already talking about a lack of support, but those ones get like the least amount of support, and it's amazing what they do. And Morgan Adams Foundation really was like, we want to make Radflix go. And so I was hired on. I'm the only like paid staff member of Radflix. But so I'm the executive director, and I'm like not wholly responsible. Like, there's a whole team of us that are doing this together and have been working on this for a handful of years, but we have nonprofit status through Morgan Adams. In the States, we're like umbrellaed under their organization. And in Canada, we got our nonprofit status last October, which having that means now we can like fundraise and apply for grants and work at getting these devices into hospitals. And by the end of this year, we should be in somewhere between 8 and 10 hospitals between the US and Canada. Which is just incredible. So right now we still have like the trial device, which is at UC Denver, which is what Morgan Adams is based out of. And then we are in Cincinnati, which is like a huge deal because they're #1 in the nation in the States. And so we're in like one of the most prestigious hospitals you can be in for pediatric oncology. But we have signed contracts with New York Proton, with Emory, which is in Georgia, which is a huge proton center in the States, Ohio State University Hospital. We will be installing in Calgary, Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton. Like, we're really growing. So all of these are coming back, and we have funding in place for all of those institutions. There's still many more to fund. Canada has 13 centers that do pediatric radiation. So, we're in 4. We've got quite a ways to go, but we're getting there. And just the fact that, we can reduce this trauma and stress for these kids, to me, is really remarkable. And it's again one of those things where, like, I wish this wasn't a problem I knew had to be solved. I wish this wasn't a problem at all. But I'm just, like, immensely proud of the fact that we are doing something to improve the experience for these kids. And most kids need general anesthetic to get through radiations. They have to basically be put to sleep because it's so scary for them. And with Radflix, they don't need that. And so, like, I don't know, my mama's heart is just like, I'm making kids feel safe. And I don't think there's anything I could be more proud of in my life than that. And that it was Ev's dream that it would be a thing. And so really, like, to be a driver of this big dream of hers is remarkable. And then I get to just, like, do it alongside of some of the most brilliant, kind, spectacular people that this, like, earth holds. It just feels like a gift to get to do this.
Yeah. Holy smokes, Heather. That's...
I'm in awe.
Yeah.
I'm in awe. Like, you're unstoppable.
Well, no, that's not true.
But like what you said about the less stress is, you think about how much we talk about how stress creates illness. Like, not that it creates it, but it makes it, the more stressed out you are, the harder it is for you to fight illnesses and things, and the more likely you are to get sick and all this kind of stuff. And so it's like, if you're able to relieve this stress for kids, like,
totally,
is that gonna make a difference in their recovery, in the cure, in their, not cure, but their overcoming, in the relapses? Like, is that, it very well could. And
well, I mean, psychologically, yes, we know that that, like, stress and trauma have physical deficits in the body as well. I am one of those people. So there's limited research, but there is some research out there about caregivers of, like, medically ill children having different like, medical complications. So adrenal fatigue, heart attack, stroke, heart disease, obesity, depression. Like, there is a lot of physical and emotional deficits that have potential to come from being a caregiver. And I'm, like, spilling all the tea in this podcast because this is something else I haven't publicly shared. But last January, I had a mini stroke, and through, like, talking with our doctors and doing research, and, like, I'm fine. I have no, like, long-term deficits from it or anything. It certainly gave us, like, a scare. But when I started doing research on it, I discovered that this is, like, a thing that happens to people who have been in my situation. And it was interesting because not even a month later, I bumped into another mom from oncology, and I was like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And she goes, "I'm going to the heart clinic," because it was at, like, near a gym. And I said to her, "Oh, what are you doing at the heart clinic?" And she said, they told her daughter was in remission. So she was 5 years out, like, cancer free. And the next week she had a heart attack. And like, the number of people I talk to who have these kinds of experiences, like, and so if it's like that for caregivers, it's safe to assume it's like that for children. And I think, like, we know that, like, trauma and stress and anxiety have impact long term on people. And so if we can remove some of those, like, neurological and physical deficits, I mean, my goodness, the impact is huge. And not only that, but there is neurological deficits that come from going under general anesthetic. So there is also physical complications from that. And so when you think about radiation patients who are having, 27 days or 6 weeks or 6 months, like they're sometimes doing months at a time of radiation 5 days a week, and they're being put to sleep every single day or 5 days a week because of that. There is neurological deficits associated to that. So even just beyond like the physical complications, we're actually impacting the brain in a positive way by removing this need for being put to sleep. And then on top of that, there is like these emotional benefits, which are so huge, of that reduction of stress and anxiety. Like we have the coolest stories of kids. Like there's one story of a little girl who was like really struggling to get through her radiation. And so they were having to put her under general. And then when she had access to Radflix, she would just like go in the room, hop on the bed, start her day. And the one day the bed, they were having a hard time getting the tabletop aligned properly and getting everything going. So she was in there for quite a long time. And the staff was all nervous because they're like, oh, great. Like we're going to have to restart everything and put her to sleep because we're taking too long. And anyways, they get through all the treatment and they go in the room and they said, sorry, sweetie, you were here for so long today. And she's like, that's okay. Can I finish my movie? Like she didn't even care. And this was a kid who like the day before couldn't get through it without being put to sleep. Like it's an incredible impact. And like the happiness she felt leaving that day, I'm sure was huge. And not only that, but when you go under a general, now you have to be the first patient of the day. You're there for hours longer than when you're just like, because you have to have recovery time. You can't eat beforehand. So now your toddlers are like super hangry, as well as angry from chemo and radiation and all the other things they're dealing with. Right. So like, even that we're like giving families even the gift of time. There's another family whose daughter had a brain tumor called DIPG. There's a 0 survival rate on DIPG. It is a terrible, terrible, terrible type of cancer. It's a brain tumor. And this little girl had like some emergency radiation done just to kind of buy them a little bit more time. And prior to that, all of her radiation, Radflix wasn't available. And when she did these 6 sessions, Radflix became available partway through that. And her mom has said to us, like, you gave us time back with her because we weren't at the hospital for hours on end. And she was a lot happier to be there because she didn't have to go under general. And so even from that, like that gift of time is so significant and so important. And like, gosh, if we can keep giving that to families across Canada and the US, like what an amazing service. Like this is so much, Radflix is so much more than just like letting kids watch a movie. Like when we talk about psychosocial care, like this is the heart of what psychosocial care is. We are giving kids simple joys of childhood back. We are letting them have a friend in that space with them. We are making them feel safe. We are making parents feel better, because I tell you that big, heavy leaded door closes behind your kid and you feel sick about it. But if your kid is happily watching a movie, it is a lot easier to see that door close. It is easier on the staff. We are reducing burden on staff because the kids don't have to be there as long. The kids are happy to be there. Like this has such a massive impact in so many facets of this treatment space. Like I don't know. I sometimes even don't have words for how incredible it is and how proud of it
I mean, I don't have words to tell you how incredible it is and how proud you should be of it, because it's unreal the way something that seems so small is so freaking big. So huge.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think we don't realize like that sometimes simple things like giving a kid control back means they're more likely to do what you need them to do. And they get control, like they get to pick what movie they want to watch. We are giving them some control. Like this is such a multifaceted project. And that's why it's giving childhood back. It really is giving a part of childhood back to these kids. And I just think, again, I know I've said this before, but I just think Ev would look at that and be like, wow, we did it. Like, I think she'd be so pleased with it. And I am so proud of it and so pleased with it. And I like just loving watching it grow. I mean, and we've had like growing pains, and it's so much work to get where we've gotten to. And I think there's like so much behind the scenes that people just have no idea happens. And now like that it's all coming together, it just blows my mind that we're here.
Yeah, Heather, holy smokes. That
Wow.
I'm so excited to share all this information with people because like the more you know, right? I want that reading rainbow, like rainbow with the book at the end, because the more you know about all of these things, like I know that I've been following the Radflix account and all of this didn't occur to me. Like I thought, oh, that's gonna make it so much easier for the kids. But there's so many other things that you just talked about that make such a massive difference that don't occur when you just look at the one thing. And man, the things you were doing to make a difference in kids' lives, in families' lives, to make it easier to go through one of the most horrible things anybody has to go through is incredible. Incredible, yeah. Heather. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So September 15th is Ev's party. Melissa, you're like, what's happening? So every year to honor Evelyn's birthday, we have a driveway dance party. So the driveway dance party started because that first year as her birthday came, we just couldn't sit in that day and just be sad. Like we just knew we had to do something good with it. And it was COVID, so it was like super complicated about what you could or could not do. And there was rules, and the rules were constantly changing because we were literally in those like first few months of COVID, right? And so we decided on a driveway dance party because you could have outside gatherings. And we had like this amazing friend of ours, Dan Bennett is his name. His like stage name is Transit 22. And like, I've known him since we were teenagers, and he has a son the same age as Ev, and we used to like carpool to and from school together and stuff, like just fun things. Anyways, he's a DJ and a performer, and his partner Johnny Williams, who is also a DJ. And we reached out to them, and Dan was like, absolutely, we're in. And so we like our neighbors, Tanis and Brian, who are like if you want to talk about winning the jackpot of neighbors, helped us put this whole thing together, along with like some of Ev's best friends and other families. And I feel like I just can't keep like saying all the names, but just like so many wonderful people that we're so lucky to have in our lives, helped us put this whole thing together. And so I did live interviews on Instagram the whole day, with all different people. And it was so much fun. It was exhausting, but it was so much fun. And in the midst of all of that, people were on our street dancing, and like drag queens came and performed, and YYC princesses showed up, and the Badlands, which is cosplayers, which are all like the Star Wars characters, came, and like all these people come still every single year and perform and participate and have fun with it. Pinovate always shows up and does a craft. Sugar Cube comes and like spins cotton candy and sells treats and like donates, and Pinovate and all these businesses involved all donate everything they make that day back into whatever project it is we're supporting at the time. And so it's like this very amazing, very fun day. And we just like dance all day long because Ev just loved a dance party. And all through her treatment, especially in any hard moment, we had a dance party. And so it just felt like this very spectacular way to honor this thing that she loved, which was like just being with her friends and doing something joyful and dancing. And so we planned this party, and we thought it'll just be a little party. And then it like blew up. It was huge and amazing and wonderful. And we do it every year since. And it's like grown over the years. Like we get a block party permit and we close off our street, and all of our neighbors are extremely gracious and just let it happen. And also show up and dance and donate and support. And like, it is a day. It is a good day. And so we always do this to honor Ev for her birthday. And so this year it's on September 15th. This is our first year doing it in September. We've always done it in August because Ev has an August birthday. But we're finding now that the world is kind of opened back up, that August is increasingly difficult to get like all of our people out and all of our businesses out. And even for us, it's increasingly difficult. And I was finding for my heart, I just needed like Ev's day, like her birthday, just to like have something quieter for me. But we still want to celebrate her birthday. And we just felt like, because she's an August birthday, we actually almost always had her birthday party in September because all of her friends were back from school by then. So doing the party in September felt like a really natural transition this year. And then because it is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, it just feels even more significant. So our theme this year is Yours Are Golden, because gold is the childhood cancer awareness color, and Ev was golden. So we are going to have a golden party, and our goal is to fundraise the last of what we need for the child life specialist to finish off that project. So yeah, we're going to knock that out, and anything remaining left over from that will go towards pediatric radiation projects. So we're excited. It's going to be super fun, and everybody should come. So it's on Woodview Crescent on September 15th. And come and dance. And if you can't be here, follow us on social and find the link and make a donation and support us and this project, and just help us honor Ev on this year. She would be 16. So it feels a little bit golden because I feel like it's such a milestone year. Like, she'd be getting her driver's license. We'd be scraping together to buy her car. This year we're going to scrape together and finish off the Child Life Specialist project, and ensure that one has like really lasting impacts. Yeah, so we're not going to buy her a car, but we're going to buy her a Child Life Specialist. And it's a golden year. 16 is a pretty cool year, and so it's really significant to do that for her this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do people go to the party? Like, is it a ticketed event? People just come?
It's just open.
Come and party?
That's very intentional. We want it to feel like anybody could come regardless of their ability to donate. And the reason being is because that is the heart really of who Ev was. She just wanted everybody to feel like they were a part of what she was doing. She was that kid who just made sure everybody was included all the time. And so we do not charge to attend the party. I mean, our hope obviously is that you participate in something while you're there, that helps us raise some needed dollars. And if you're a business that wants to help sponsor, we have a sponsorship package. Reach out. Like we do everything we can to kind of ensure that it's fully accessible, that anybody who wants to be there can be there. And whether it means you donate $1 or you donate $100,000, we want you to walk in the door. I mean, and honestly, some of the most special gifts we receive are like the kids who do a lemonade stand and walk in with a bag full of change, or the child who took $2 out of their piggy bank. Like, I tell you, I cry at every single one of those kids. And there's so much heart inside of that. And it's because Evelyn did something. There's a little girl that comes every single year. She makes rainbow loom bracelets, and she comes with hundreds of bracelets and sets up a little table and sells her bracelets every year and donates every dollar back. Like, how beautiful and precious and like life-giving is that kind of a gift. And like, I mean, even Pinovate, who comes with like a unique, cool Ev theme craft every year, and Sugar Cube, who sells all of Ev's favorite candies out their truck and donates every dollar. And like, I mean, they're just, and like Dan and Johnny, who donate their time to be here, and DJ and our neighbors who like open up their driveway and their house. And like, it is this really cool event of like a whole bunch of community coming together and giving and loving. And I just, every year it feels so representative of who Evelyn was and continues to be. And it's just such a fun day. And we do the music pumps, and we dance all day. And I'm not kidding when I tell you there is princesses and Ghostbusters. And I didn't even mention the party starts every year with a motorcycle salute. There is a group, Bikers Are Buddies, which look them up. They do super cool things, but they surprised us the first year. We didn't know they were coming, and they have come every year since. They literally reach out to me and are like, when's Ev's party? Can we be involved? But they kick off the party every year. All of their motorcycles, they ride in and they stop and they rev their engine for the number of her birthday. So this year will be 16 revs. And then they take a moment and pause, and then they all park their bikes, get off, and come and party for a little bit. And then they all ride out together. And it is just, I mean, like, my parents are bikers. I grew up on motorcycles. Like, so that sense of, again, community is just so cool. And the fact that they show up every year to do this just blows my mind. Like, they're just the most special people that participate in this party. So it is so fun, and everybody needs to come and have at least one dance and a glass of lemonade and drop some money in the bucket, and and it's all tax receivable. So if you care about your tax receipt, you do get one.
I remember. No, go ahead, Melissa.
I'm there. I'm Sammy. Let's go dancing. I love it. Okay, do people? Okay, go ahead.
You go. Go, Melissa.
I wanted to say, how do people find information about the party and see more about the party? Is that through your Instagram, Heather?
Yeah, and the Team Evelyn Foundation on Instagram as well.
Team Evelyn Foundation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So between that one and mine, we post all the party info. But yeah, September 15th, Woodview Crescent. Come on down.
Oh, that's so cool.
I saw when you shared the date for Evelyn's birthday, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And you kind of told me a quick, like, yeah, we have this dance party every year, like, come. And I was like, yeah, we'll be there. That is not how big I pictured it in my mind.
That is.
But like, that's amazing. I am excited about this. That is absolutely amazing. Oh my gosh, Heather, we cannot thank you enough for donating so much of your time to us today and sharing Evelyn's story and your family's story, and so much about all of the impact you're making and the difference you're making in the lives of parents, families, kids, siblings, everybody who's impacted by childhood cancer. Like, you are making massive waves and making a huge difference in these people's lives, and it's incredible. I'm seriously in awe, and it's I feel like we say this all the time. It's so beautiful and incredible to see. So just like, thank you so much for all, not just for being here, for all that you do. It's awesome.
Thank you for giving me space to share. Like, it's any opportunity to talk about Evelyn, and all of this was like, even the projects we're doing, it's all about Ev, right? And so just any space to share about her and let people know about like how remarkable and amazing and wonderful she is, and just like her heart for people and her like passion for making better. Any opportunity I get to tell people about that is just, it's an honored experience for me.
Thank you so much.
We're just so grateful. You are just wonderful, and we just love talking with you, and we're just really grateful for you sharing your story, and we will do our best to do it justice and honor Evelyn.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. To help support the growth of this podcast, please feel free to leave us a review, follow us on socials, or recommend us to your friends. Your support honestly means the world to us. With love, Sammy and Melissa.